Is that you, Al?
Who else would it be, Fox?
Oi, you lot. Behave, will you? Bold. Did you start this? Stop it. Stop it at once.
Children, love one another. And if that is not possible, at least try to put up with one another.
Cubs, eh?
Vixen's turn to go hunting, I take it.
Too true, Al. And I'm left holding the babies. I don't know how she keeps them in order.
The love of a good mother is
Don't tell me. I don't want to know. Just tell me how to keep them quiet, if you know.
Who goes there?
Oh, me.
Who is me?
It's only Badger. Welcome, old friend. Leave Badger alone, Cubs.
Oh, my lord, the young uns today.
I'm here too!
So insignificant a creature, I fail to see you.
Better get your eyes tested then.
Who is it?
I'll give you 3 guesses.
Weasel. We may as well resign ourselves to a night of unappeased aggravation.
The Cubs like her.
Precisely.
They're young folks. They need entertainment.
They need education.
They need a good spanking.
So does Weasel come to that.
Top of the evening, me mateys.
Toad!
Seeing you all takes me back to the good old days. The days of the journey, what has become legend. Who'd have thought we'd have all ended up here together at White Deer Park, keeping watch over foxes' cubs in the night after all those terrible adventures?
What adventures, Toady?
He's a bold young cub and no mistake. Why? I mean the adventures of the journey of the animals of Farthing Wood.
Which animals?
All sorts we were, matey. All sorts. Come on and settle down, and we'll tell you all about it.
Toad, you're the answer to a prayer.
Badger, your memory's better than mine. Tell 'em how it was at the beginning. If you think, really?
Oh, yes, do, Mr. Badger.
Badger. All right, then. Now, let me see. In the beginning, there were a lot of different animals living in a wood called Farthing Wood. On the other side of the world, it was. There was me, and Mole, and... Shh! Oh, sorry.
And me?
Shut up, Weasel. And there was your dad, the fox here. Not your mother. No, she came later. But there was every other kind of animal you would expect to find in a wood. Except in myself, mateys. I'd gone far away. Yes, Toad had disappeared. And we'd all given him up for lost. We missed him, of course, but we were very happy in the wood. We had everything we needed, a little river for water, trees, banks in which to dig our burrows, food, and protection for everyone. Then one day, our little haven was threatened. The humans came with their machinery and started digging up the trees on the edge of the woods. I remember lying in my set, feeling the earth vibrate around me. My teeth chattered and my ears rang. All day the machines roared and ground pitilessly at the earth, and there was no peace until nightfall, when the humans finally went away. Then all the animals emerged, shaking from their holes, and saw the devastation that the machines had caused through the day. But it did not end there. For in the morning the humans were back, and each day following, and their machines came nearer and nearer, and the woods grew smaller and smaller, and the animals grew more and more afraid. It was the summer, and very hot. No rain had fallen on Farthing Wood for many weeks, and the ground was hard as stone. Well, one night, after the machines had gone, I emerged into the starlight as usual. I had a great thirst on me, so I started off for our little pond. But it wasn't there. Not any more. The humans had filled it in through the day, and in its place was just a level swathe of earth. It was as though the pond had never been. The newts, those poor little newts with their babies, lay panting in the dry soil. Goodness knows how they escaped the jaws of the diggers. I looked on them with sorrow, but what could I do? Then Fox came up, his tongue hanging out, and he growled at what he saw. And then Owl.
I saw them do it. I saw them fill it in.
Now the only water available to us was a tiny stream, and soon that too would be gone. It was a real emergency, an emergency that affected every single creature in the wood. So Fox and Owl and I went looking for the other animals.
We had to find something to do.
We had decided to call a Farthing Wood assembly, bring all the best brains of the wood together, so we could decide what to do. That in itself was easier said than done. At first the rabbits ran away from us.
Why?
They were afraid of Fox, of course. The hedgehogs were very shy. The voles and field mice hid.
I didn't. I came to the aid of the party.
Everything's a party to you.
But as I told you, it was a terrible emergency, and every animal knew it. So, overcoming their natural fears, finally they all agreed to gather at my set. But everyone was still very nervous. The mice were afraid of Adder. The rabbits were afraid of Fox. The birds turned up their beaks at the very idea of going underground.
He who dwells in the soil shall himself become soiled. He who dwells in the light shall find enlightenment.
Quite so. To make Owl and our daytime brethren happy, we gathered glowworms to light the way down the tunnel, and at the appointed hour, in they all came. The hares, the rabbits, the hedgehogs. Then there were the shrews, mice, and voles, closely pursued by Adder. Fox kept her under his eye. Then the birds. Remember that vain old pheasant and his wife, afraid to dirty his fine plumage? Then Kestrel and Owl and the squirrels came down from their trees, and last but not least, dear old Moly dug his way through from his place to mine, and the assembly was gathered.
You forgot me.
Wishful thinking, old friend, wishful thinking.
And it wasn't like a party at all, because everyone was wailing and moaning and carrying on something horrible about how there was no water, no peace, and no hope, and no toads either. When, at that very moment...
Ahoy there, me mateys! I bet you never thought you'd see me again, eh? Ha-ha! And Toad was back amongst us. Not that any of us recognised him at first. He was covered in blood and mud. Where have you been? We all asked him. And I told 'em, mateys.
Where had you been, Toady?
Some human child had taken me off in a jam jar. Miles away I'd gone. But then, being a toad, I escaped, and my one thought was to get back home to me own and only pond. Instinct, you see, but oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. When I did get back after a whole season's travelling, what did I find?
Toad's pond was no more.
Poor old Toady.
All that way and for nothing, I ask you. But soon I learned that not only was my own birthplace lost forever, but everybody's homes. In fact, the whole wood was under threat. One of these days, the squirrels would jump from their tree, expecting to find a branch within reach, and fall straight to the ground, because there were no more trees left. The humans had cut them all down. And as for food and water, well, what were we all to do? There was nowhere safe. Then suddenly, I got this brainwave.
Brainstorm, you mean?
Shut up,
Shut up,
Weasel.
Weasel.
Brainwave it was, and I knows a wave when I sees one. I told 'em all. I knows a place where you can all go and be safe forevermore, I said. The place, of course, was White Deer Park. I'd come across it on my travels after the jam jar incident. But could I get any of them stupid creatures to believe there was a place where humans actually protected animals? Oh, unheard of it was. But
Needs must, to coin a phrase.
exactly. They had to do something, and mine was the only idea on offer. So, eventually everyone agreed. Unwillingly, granted, but still they agreed to band together, and with me as guide, make their way to this park place, where we'd have food, shelter, and be safe into the bargain.
But the vegetarians weren't too keen on going along as sort of ready dinners for the carnivals. Know what I mean? Ada never could resist a field mouse, and she'd eaten half the glowworms already. So, Badger said...
I said we must bring back the ancient woodland vow.
The oath.
Yes, the oath. The oath of mutual protection.
Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear not to catch, bite, swallow, chew, or otherwise consume any farthing creature
Well done, Bold.
while en route to Toad's White Deer Park.
Yes, so all the animals swore, and all that remained was to elect a leader. The obvious choice.
Rabbits. How does a fox gain the confidence of a blooming rabbit?
But we all agreed to meet under the great oak the following midnight to begin our journey. We only had to survive one more day, but we thought midnight would never come. Finally, twilight revealed the new devastation of a new day. We were leaving in the nick of time. Of course, none of us really wanted to leave. My own family of badgers had lived in Farthing Wood for generations. I was the last of the line, and I was deserting our ancient home.
We were all sad, Weasel.
Oh, whoops.
But there was no point in staying. If the wood died, so would we. And at least we knew we wouldn't be there to see its end.
True, true.
Well, all the animals assembled as arranged at the Great Oak. It was very warm, very close, and most were thirsty as newts. Matter of fact, the newts were very thirsty. They were a big problem. If they didn't get to water soon, they were going to die. So I asked Al to scout on ahead to see if she could find any water. Well, everybody was starting to wail and moan, and I was getting irritated. I mean, I hadn't wanted to be the leader. It was thrust on me, see? Well, anyway, Al came back, eventually.
Could you have been quicker?
Matter of fact, I wouldn't have been anything like as quick. And she said there was water not too far off. Well, not too far off is one thing to an owl and another to a mole or a newt, ain't it?
Quite so,
Exactly.
Fox.
Some of us moved quick, some of us moved slow. But we were all going to have to go at the pace of the slowest. This oath we'd all just taken was already being a bit of a bind. Mole, very apologetic,
I do so hate being a nuisance.
came along on Badger's back.
And very welcome he was, Weasel.
Makes you sick, doesn't it?
But the newts had to make their own way. And it was very slow going, I can tell you. We soon reached the edge of the wood, but then we had to cross the building site where the humans had been tearing up the earth and the trees. Upsetting that was. And Ada found it hard on her scales, and the newts, oh, well, you can imagine. Owl was flying above, hooting, showing us the way. So we kept on, encouraging the newts and Toad, who were lagging behind. Then, eventually, we saw bright yellow lights ahead. We had come to the edge of a little town. Up till now, everybody had been chattering and singing and so on to keep their spirits up. But now we'd arrived in the vicinity of humankind, I had to put a stop to all that. No way could we risk waking up a sleeping human. My plan was to pass silently through and on again. But Al had other ideas. The water she had seen was actually a swimming pool in the garden of a human house. Well, I wasn't too keen on that at first, I can tell you.
Beggars can't be choosers, Fox.
Yeah, you would say that, Al. In fact, you probably did. Well, what could I do? When I looked at the faces of those desperate little newts, I had to give in.
Softy, softy!
But as soon as I gave in, there was total and complete chaos. Everybody went mad. They crashed through the hedge into the garden, jumped into the water and splashed about, yelling and singing for all they was worth. I yelled at them, "Be quiet, you idiots! We're near humans!" But I might as well have saved my breath. The rabbits were having a fine game on this rubber mattress. It kept bobbing up and down in the water, and they kept jumping about on it, shouting and laughing. Ada, dying for a drink, had to let Weasel dangle her over the side by her teeth.
I liked having her in my mercy.
The smaller animals were squeaking desperately because they couldn't get to the water's edge either. So Badger and I had to let them climb down, hanging onto our fur, and they got a drink that way. We got soaked. Keeping that oath was a proper pain. Of course, the newts were in their element. Well, they were. Not that they made much noise. Well, they wouldn't. But Toad, oh, what a row he made.
I couldn't help myself, mateys. I always sings in the bath.
And if that wasn't bad enough, he decided to teach the bloomin' rabbits how to swim. Oh, was there pandemonium? There were rabbits hanging onto the side of the mattress, rabbits diving off, rabbits bobbing up and down in the water, screaming for help. And to cap it all, finally the mattress the dry rabbits were sitting on capsized, so they all ended up in the water. What a shambles. And then, of course, as I knew would happen, a light appeared in the window of the human house. And I knew then that we were really in for trouble. Somehow, I had to get that rowdy lot to shut up, get out of the water and away, double quick, before the human turned up. I screamed, "Drop whatever you're doing and scarp her!" Somehow, we got the rabbits out of the water and the rest of the able-bodied creatures, the hares and hedgehogs and so on. They all scarpered anyway. But where was Ada? Somebody, and I won't say who, but somebody not a million miles away from here had dropped her into the pool and she was now swimming about, hissing and spitting, unable to get out of the water at all.
Well, you said, Fox, you said, drop whatever you're doing and make a run for it. So I did. I dropped Ada in the pool.
Too right you did. And what a job I had getting her out again. Luckily, there was this stick sticking out of the soil, so I grabbed it with my teeth. All the flowers fell down. I wonder why. And I held it out over the pool. Of course, Ada started swimming towards the stick and curled herself round it.
Highly inventive.
Credit where credit's due, Al. It was. Meanwhile, Badger had been rounding up the mice, and they were just beating a hasty retreat across the grass when this great big cat sticks its head through an hole at the bottom of the door of the house. Well, the cat was a bit fat, so it had a fair old squeeze, and it was struggling to get through the hole and out into the garden when it saw them mice. Its eyes started fairly gleaming with joy, and it struggled harder to get out of the hole. But the more it struggled, the more it got stuck. Well, anyway, it was about halfway through when I flung the cane with Ada on it into the air. Have you ever seen a snake fly? Well, I have. She fairly somersaulted high up above over the lawn and landed right in front of the door, right in front of the cat's nose. Well, then Ada started hissing and spitting, and the cat was just a bit startled. Well, she would be, wouldn't she? And now she wanted to go back out of the hole into the house. But she couldn't. She was stuck, see? So she didn't know what to do. Till I comes along and I takes hold of the little flap over the hole, and I pulls it towards me with my teeth, and then lets it fall back right against the cat's nose. What a bang it made! And did that cat meow? Anyway, the mice made their escape, and I followed quick as a flash. I wasn't sticking around for any human, and by that time the human had arrived. He opened the door, with the cat still stuck in it, halfway through its hole, to find that we'd all disappeared, except, of course, for Ada. And nobody was going to go messing with her, now were they?
Hooray!
We were all waiting for Fox on the other side of the edge, cheering and hurraying. Fox saved the day. Good old Fox. Fox saved the day.
I said it then, and I'll say it again. Cunning is the lowest form of intelligence.
Well, cubs, the animals weren't thirsty anymore, but they were very tired. So the next thing was to find them a safe place to rest. Following Toady, he was our guide, we all walked on a little further, till at last the dawn started coming up, and the rabbits started panicking, as usual. "Don't panic," the mother rabbit used to say, and the more she said it, the more she did it. Panic, I mean. Well, things were getting desperate, when finally we came to some army land with a large gorse thicket. Well, it wasn't exactly perfect, especially as it was on the other side of a big road.
My heart sank, I can tell you. I was worn out, and I wasn't the only one. We stood on the side of the road looking across at the gorse thicket.
"Everything comes to he who waits," I said, "including death on the road." They took my point, of course. It was getting lighter with every second that passed, and I knew from the experience of a long life that the more light there was, the more cars and lorries there would also be. So, very wisely, for once, Fox took my advice and shouted back down the line, "Hurry up, everyone!" Of course, there was pandemonium, as usual. Mole wanted to get down from Badger's back because he felt guilty about being a burden. What a fusspot! Adder was angry with Weasel for dropping her in the pool, so they were bickering. The hedgehogs and newts were positively crawling along, thoroughly exhausted and ruining the day they had ever started out from Farthing Wood, and that pompous old pheasant had actually fallen asleep on the pavement and was snoring his head off. In fact, only myself and Kestrel were any real use at all. Kestrel kept watch, warning us of coming traffic. Her eyes are keener than mine in daylight hours. And Fox ordered me to take the first group across. I was to fly with the pheasants over the road and wait on the other side so that everyone could aim for us. Of course, Pheasant took exception at that phrase, and it took some time to calm him down before we were able to follow Fox's request at all. But eventually we managed it. Then the faster land animals literally hared across. Badger, with Mole still on his back, herded those stupid rabbits over somehow, panicking every inch of the way. And then came the turn of Adder, the small mammals, the newts, and Toad. But Toad cried off, said he was too tired. So Fox allowed him to rest a while to catch his breath, and Adder had to lead in his place. Poor Adder, those loose chippings really ruined her scales. She got slower and slower. Badger had his paws over his eyes, I remember, couldn't bear to look. And then, at the last minute, he opened them again, put out a paw, and whipped Adder from under the tires of a monster lorry. Then it was Toad's turn. He was going over with Fox. Kestrel warned of another lorry. Fox urged Toad on. "Hurry up, hurry up!" Everyone was shouting encouragement. "Go on, you can do it! Come on, Toady!" And he gasped out,
"I'm coming, mateys! Toady's coming!"
When the lorry stopped, and a man got out.
"Look out, Toady!"
"I'm coming, mateys!"
cried Toad. The feet grew nearer. The man bent down, and he took Toad up in his huge hand, lifting him high, close to his face.
"Goodbye, mateys!"
When suddenly something red shot across the road. Fox to the rescue. The man looked down, amazed, but there was more to come. Streaking across the sky came Kestrel and I, talons outstretched to strike at his head and eyes. He dropped Toad.
"Grab hold of my tail, Toady,"
Fox commanded, and Toad grabbed, and he hung on and on till he was safely across on the other side of the road. At last we were all safe. We crowded under the fence and made for the security of our new hiding place under the yellow flowers of the gorse. Everyone was very tired. Of course, Badger tried to make a speech.
"Oh dear, I am sorry."
But no one was listening.
Oh, well, sleep well, everyone.
And we did. It's a pheasant shoot. The pheasants screamed in terror. Badger thought it was an earthquake. But the land on which we had taken refuge was army land, wasn't it? And the army means humans. And humans mean... To move on further into the army land was very dangerous. But neither could we retrace our steps. The rabbits started panicking and heading back to the road. And all Moody could think of was eating worms. Of course, Fox didn't know what to do. I told him, when perched between two evils, the best solution is to stay still. But it was easier said than done. The rabbits were almost at the fence. Any minute and they would be out into the busy road. Suddenly, Ada darted towards them. They started running back again and faced a wall of farthing animals. Then they stopped, shaking and shivering. The male rabbit started complaining about his nerves. It was the last straw. I decided to deliver a lecture. Fear, rabbit, I said. Fear is the greatest enemy. Conquer fear, and you can conquer the world. For he who fears nothing has nothing to fear.
You've done it again, Al. You've sent them to sleep.
No need to ruffle my feathers, Fox. I can tell a thrilling yarn with the best of them.
Thrilling yarn? Did you hear that, mateys? Owl's all right, ain't you, me hearty?
No need to be familiar, Toad. I am not your hearty. Never was and never shall be.
What happened?
That won't come up.
Thank you, Toad. There was another explosion, see? And then Hare, he had his ear to the ground, and he starts yelling, I can hear feet, hundreds of human feet, and they're coming this way. Then from high up in the sky, Kestrel spied them, a long line of men coming towards us, carrying guns. Well, no doubt about it now, we had to get out of it sharpish. I called everyone together, and everyone came, except for Moly. Badger called and called for him, and suddenly he came up, his little nose burrowing up out of the earth, right under Al. Well, that really did ruffle her feathers, that did. But no harm done. Off we went, following Kestrel inland towards a stretch of water. This was more like it, better than the human pool. Toad was playing with the baby newt, I remember. They had great fun. So much fun, in fact, that when we decided it was time to move on, the newt stayed behind. Yeah, we didn't like leaving them, but they had everything they needed there, and if truth be told, they weren't up to the journey. Newts move very slowly, even slower than hedgehogs, and they were holding the rest of us back. And to top it all, they had a baby with them. So, well, we all thought it was probably for the best, and we said our goodbyes. We dragged Moly out from the mud, a mouthful of worms as usual, and off we went. Well, the day was wearing on. I saw the evening star in the sky, and it was time to halt. I told everybody to take a rest, to give the stragglers a chance to catch up, and maybe eat a little bit of something at the same time. Moly didn't need telling twice. He dived straight back into the mud looking for worms. Greedy little beggar. And it was after that that Weasel...
I smelt something nasty. I smelt smoke. I smelt burning. I smelt fire. And I yelled and yelled, fire, fire. There was a red glow in the sky. Badger said it was a sunset, but I knew it wasn't. I knew. I wanted to run. Run. We all did. We were scared.
So was I. And Kestrel confirmed what Weasel had guessed. She could see the flames from up in the air. Every instinct told me to run. But I couldn't. I had to see everybody else was all right first. So I ordered them to stay put. And I looked to see who was there and who wasn't. The mice and the voles weren't too far behind. We could hear them squeaking. But Ada was missing. And Toad. Toad was our guide. We were lost without him. Where was he? I told Badger to make everybody wait till the rest of the stragglers had caught up, then lead them all to safety. I was going back to look for Toad, and I was running towards the fire.
But the fire was getting nearer. The mice caught up, but there was still Adder. And where was Mole? My dear greedy little Moley. We had to wait for them, but it was hard. The rabbits were running around in circles. Weasel nearly ran into the marsh. We must wait, I told them. We must give them time. How much time, they asked. 200 heartbeats, I said. 1, 2, 3.
I could feel the heat of the fire. I could hardly speak for the smoke, but I kept on trying, calling out Toad's name. And I thought, he won't hear me. There's too much noise. Boughs and trees were crashing to the ground all around me. And then, at last, I thought I heard something, very faint. Toad? Toad! Where are you? I said. I'm coming, Toady! And there he was, poor old Toad, crouched under a gorse bush.
Oh, I thought I was done for, so I'd hidden under the bush to wait my end. But when I heard Fox...
And then a flame caught at Toad's gorse bush. It went up like a torch, lighting up the sky, and Toad leapt clear. And he fell to the ground at my feet. I picked him up in my jaws, and then I ran. Flames licking at my heels, my eyes blinded by the stinging smoke, hoping that somehow I would find our old friends.
195, 196, 100...
There she is, Ada! Yoo-hoo!
Yes, but where was Moley? He was deep underground, greedily eating his worms. We could wait no longer. Sadly, we left him to his fate.
He who can lose home and friends and still remain calm is beyond all grief.
Well, I wasn't. I grieved. Every step of the way my heart grieved for my old friend Moley. And then there was Fox and Toad. What had happened to them? Looking up, I could see Kestrel and Owl hovering overhead, showing us the way to safety. I followed on. I had to. I had the others to think of. And then we came to a stretch of water. It was red with fire. There we stopped. Nobody spoke, not even Weasel. We were all too shocked and tired. We had lost the best of friends. And then Kestrel cawed loudly. She had seen something coming out of the smoke. We strained our eyes to see, but my eyes were only good for darkness, so I could see nothing. "It's Fox," cried Hare. "He's got Toad," screamed Squirrel. And it was, and he had. And eventually I saw him myself, a dark shape coming out of the darkness towards us. "Fox, old friend, is that you?" I called. But Fox could not speak. He collapsed at our feet, and Toad with him. We all wept with joy to see him. Eventually, Toad got his breath and was able to answer the many questions we were all asking him. How did he get lost? When did the fire start? And how? "I'm sorry, mateys. I just couldn't keep up with you. You'd all gone way on ahead. Even Adder was in front of me. I just reached the edge of the gorse thicket when I heard a strange sizzling noise. I looked back and I saw a flame shoot out of the dry grass. Then it caught at the bushes and up they went like bonfires. We were lucky the wind wasn't blowing our way. It was blowing the flames back, mateys, the way we'd come, to the other side of the marsh. And then we realized the newts. Our family of newts, we'd left them on the other side of the marsh, thinking they'd be safe. Fox slept, and we kept watch. But the wind was changing. It was chasing the fire around the sides of the water, and soon it would reach us at the far end. Rabbit was coughing miserably. His wife was panicking. Pheasant said he didn't want to be roasted alive, thank you very much. But Toad was cheerful. He said the humans would put out the fire before it reached us. They had engines and hoses and could make rain that put out flames. Well, the men worked fast, but they weren't as fast as the fire. It seemed a pity to wake poor old Fox. He was so tired, but there was nothing for it. We had to move on again. The only thing was, where?
Wakey, wakey!
What, who? Oh, Weasel, it's you.
Surprise, surprise, Fox! The fire's nearly here and there's humans close behind!
I was on my feet at once. I looked up and saw Kestrel in the sky. Could she see any way out? She went off, flying low over the water. Then she came back and she said there was a causeway, a narrow strip of land just under the water that ran out to a tiny island in the middle of the lake. We'd be safe there, she said. It was our only chance. I took the others down to the edge of the water, but the smaller mammals, the shrews, the mice and the voles, even the hedgehogs, were all so tired and nervous that they couldn't face the idea of swimming. So Badger and I volunteered to take them across on our backs. They clambered on. Then the squirrels jumped on after them, and soon Badger and I were laden. We shouted to the others to get into the water and start swimming. The flames were getting closer. Go on, we shouted. Weasel and Adder started terrorizing the rabbits to make them go across. They were more frightened of Weasel and Adder than the water, so off they went. The hares tried leaping across, but disappeared up to their ears when they landed, so they had to start swimming too. The pheasants wailed as they trailed their feet in the red water. They were very bad at flying. Toad was okay, of course, but as for the rest, it was up to Badger and me. Still, we did it. Eventually, we reached the little island, and we all stood there, packed close together, as remarkable a little bunch of creatures as you ever saw, marooned in the middle of the lake, looking back at the fiery land. But what about Mole? What happened to Moley? Then we saw him. He was on the other side of the water. One of the firefighters had laid his coat on the ground, and now Mole crept out of his pocket and staggered, blinking into the light. Obviously, one of the humans had saved him, but now he was swaying dizzily amongst their feet, in great danger. Even if the humans meant him no harm, they were likely to crush him. I decided to go and get him. Keeping my head low in the water so as not to be seen, I swam out slowly towards him. Mole didn't see me till I was nearly on top of him, but that didn't matter. What mattered was to get to Mole without being seen myself. Kestrel and Owl created a diversion. They put on a flying display right over the men's heads, and, as expected, all the men looked up like sheep to watch the birds wheeling and circling. I took my chance and pulled myself out of the water. "Grab hold of my tail, Moley," I told him. He grabbed hard, and I turned and stepped once more into the water, swimming for dear life back to the island. We were almost there when the birds returned, having given up their display, and at last the humans saw us. What a sight we must have been. But we were proud of ourselves. We had stuck to the oath, and now, at last, we were glad of it. We had not run in the face of danger. We had stayed together, vegetarians and carnivores, birds and mammals, reptiles and rodents, all helping and supporting one another until now. There we were, safe and sound, watching the men standing together on the other side, watching us standing together on the island. The bunch of animals they call the animals of Farthing Wood.